Here we are.
Hey Dunk, how are we?
Hey, mate, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Welcome everybody to the yet to be titled podcast bet- between myself and Duncan McDade. We thought we would do an introduction of who we are, but to begin with, I am going to introduce Duncan and who he is, and then he's going to introduce me and who I am.
Just to change it up a little bit.
Just a little bit of a switch up. So Duncan is a beautiful, beautiful young man who has been in the fitness and wellness industry, I would say, for about 20 years. Yeah, close to.
Nearly.
And he came across my sphere of awareness probably about 15 years ago. I think maybe the first time I saw you, you were teaching a Bulgarian bag
Is that right?
workshop
Yeah,
at my gym.
yeah.
And I'm like, this guy's onto something. I like this guy. I like this guy a lot. A few years kind of passed, and I went overseas and I did various different things, and we came back and we just kind of, you know what? Do you know where we reconnected? It was on the corner of, it was on the Pean Highway.
And North Road,
Was it
driving
Pean North?
next to each other. Yeah, I
That's
remember. I
right.
remember it well. There was like two connection points within the space of a few days where we came into each other's orbits, and I was like, all right, we should probably reconnect.
This is meant to be,
Yeah.
and you know, to just follow on with who Duncan is. He is just an incredible wealth of knowledge when it comes to the way the human body works, how to rehabilitate injury, how to move efficiently, and being able to get strength and gains out of the way you move, and also he's just a very special human. I know this is
Thank you, mate. Yeah, we better cut that short before we delve too far into self-loving each other.
he's a good man. He's a good man, and I'm just going to stop it right there because I'm going to cry.
Perfect. Well, I'll get on to you then, Mr. Pauly Gleaser. Been in the industry over 20 years now.
Yes.
Was a manager of CrossFit Balaclava when I was there. It was a jungle, and that's the first time I remember coming across you. But one of the warmest, most welcoming, and nicest humans that I know. And then on a professional level, one of the most knowledgeable and enthusiastic fitness professionals that I've come across in the near on 20 years. So I'm excited to sort of delve into a few different topics and get this off the ground and utilize it first and foremost, I think, as a library of content of nearly 40 years worth of fitness information collectively that we have between us. And I know we're going to kick off talking about sleep because sleep is the foundation you build everything else on top of. If you're looking at a pyramid of health and wellness, sleep will do what 95% of the supplements out there prescribe themselves to be able to do. So I thought it was a pertinent point to start exactly here. Spend 10 minutes just going through underlining the importance of it and some tips that we might have to help people out along the way. And then we've got a couple of questions to answer from clients at the end. Do you want to start with the importance of sleep, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. Sleep. I always do say it's the tide that rises all other health boats.
Nice.
And when I speak to my clients and they ask me about which supplements should I be taking and what should I be doing, should I be intermittent fasting, should I be doing that, blah, blah, blah. All these things that are important, but ultimately, if you're not getting an adequate amount of sleep and you're not rising with like a reasonable amount of rest, then that's the thing that you need to address first, I
Yeah.
would say.
And how would you know? Because there's so much conflicting information about how many hours of sleep that you need. And as we know, we're all so different. How would you know whether you're getting good sleep or not?
It's a good question. I think there's a certain level of self-awareness that needs to take place when it comes to this. For me personally, I'm an early riser. I'm up at between 5 and 5:30 most mornings.
Yep.
So I know personally, if I don't get at least 7 hours sleep, I'm not going to be the best version of myself, energy wise, clarity wise, expression
Yeah.
wise, being able to really train my best and be my best for that next
So
day.
7 hours is your sort of minimum dose of getting that.
Yeah.
Um, so for
Seven to
and
8 hours. 7 to 8
7 to
hours.
8 is, and eight would be more like a sweet spot, right?
Yeah, and
But
which becomes challenging when you're waking up at 5:30 in the morning.
it does, right?
When you're going to sleep before your kids do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like if you've got children, like it all goes out the window a little bit as well, right? Which I'm sure many of the people that we're probably speaking to will actually be in that stage of life. And I remember the first couple of years for me, hearing about sleep and having young children, it was quite triggering in that there's a fuck all I can do about it. So don't tell me that this is the panacea of all things health when there's not a lot that I can actually do to improve my sleep.
It's
Um,
yeah, that's
but
it. It's like poking the tiger, really, isn't it?
yeah, but getting back to like how I would analyze whether I had good sleep or not, if I was somebody coming into this fresh off the boat, not knowing anything about sleep, if you wake up more often than not tired, I would say that you're not getting adequate levels of sleep. If you
Yep.
struggle for energy in the afternoons, I would say you're not getting levels of sleep that facilitate you to have energy right the way throughout the day. And if you feel like you need a stimulant in the morning to wake yourself up, you're not having adequate levels, because you can sleep for 7 hours doesn't necessarily mean you've had good sleep for seven
Correct.
hours. I wore the Aura ring, which tracks your sleep, for a couple of years, and that really highlighted to me the difference of like just being in bed to actually getting quality sleep. And I highly recommend doing something like that to anybody who wants to prioritize sleep.
So
Get yourself a wearable.
what type of patterns did you seem to find that like kind of coincided with good sleep scores versus poor sleep scores?
Yeah, mate, great question. Actually, I hadn't even thought to discuss this, but really good question. So, firstly, the most nourishing sleep I got was probably between 11 and 2. So if I got interrupted in those times, my sleep score went down. If I ate food too late at night, or sugary foods, my sleep scores went down because it interrupted those first few hours where my blood sugars didn't regulate and my heart rate stayed elevated. So I didn't get into that deep, restful sleep.
Yep.
Alcohol, of course, big trigger. Going to bed late, big trigger. Those are probably the big ticket items. Eating late, sugar, going to bed late, really sort of lowered my overall sleep scores. And I thought it was important to point out that I didn't correlate the information straight away, because what you can do is there can be a placebo or nocebo effect in that I get up, see my sleep score, and therefore that impacts how I actually show up for the day. So if I think I've got a poor sleep score, I'm more tired than I necessarily am. And you know this, like you can perform pretty well on poor sleep.
Yep.
So you can also override that for a short period of time as well. Not that I'm recommending it, but for the parents out there, it's important to know you can cope. But so I looked at the data at the end of the week, and then I could correlate what it was that I was doing with my food, and that sort of helped me not get stuck into getting too beholden to the technology, but really
Yeah.
analyzing it.
I,
From
I think that's a really good approach to it because you're right. And it also depends, and this is with a lot of my coaching clients as well. I employ different strategies for different personality types. If there are people that are a little bit too far, like if let's say they're type A personalities, and let's say they get a little bit too anxious about, well, some people thrive off data collection, and they can use that data to be able to approach their future in a constructive and an analytical fashion. But then some people can also get very anxious about that data collection that can have an impact on the way they live their life. So I think it's important to acknowledge what type of personality type you are and how that's going to determine what an aid like an Aura Ring will have and
Yeah.
data analysis. Some people might just intuitively feel better working intuitively and saying I'm feeling better because I went to sleep at 10 o'clock instead of 11 o'clock. And I'm always like, better is better than perfect,
Yeah.
because perfect doesn't,
100%.
yeah.
Doesn't exist. 1% better every day. So if you were to give an ideal sort of schedule to a client, like obviously taking into account the fact that everybody's a little bit different, so you could, take this and copy and paste it into your own life. Would you have a sort of program that would aid good sleep? Because what we're looking at is we're looking at getting a circadian rhythm consistent over 7 days a week for your 24-hour cycle. That's how we regulate our patterns well. So would you have an overall program you'd sort of recommend to a client of stuff to do to aid sleep?
Yeah, I do. And what it usually begins with is just taking those incremental steps. So let's say a client of mine, and this is a very real thing, I have clients that work on their laptops until 11:30 at night, and then they might go to sleep at 12:15. Well, there are more details in there, but to answer your question, there's no universal approach I would take because everyone is individual and everyone has unique needs and circumstances. But let's take this person who was working until 11:30 at night and then went to sleep at 12:15. What I'd say to that is let's see if we are able to, from a coaching perspective, say, let's work with going to sleep at 11:45 for the first couple of weeks and peeling back the working for a half an hour as well. And instead of working, till 11:30, you work till 11 o'clock, and perhaps you can then wake up half an hour earlier and do the additional work first thing in the morning, because
Yeah.
the exposure to blue light first thing in the morning is going to be much better for your circadian rhythm than exposing your body and your analytical headspace to working and being exposed to blue light. So if you can kind of front end your blue light exposure as opposed to back ending it in the evening, and that goes also to overhead fluorescent light bulbs when you're sitting down chilling and watching TV. If you can lower that and perhaps put some dim lighting on whilst you're watching some TV, that's also going to go a long way.
Yeah, nice.
What are your thoughts? I mean, there are other things, but let's.
My standard protocol would be morning sunlight
Yep.
as soon as you wake up, 2 to 5 minutes to try and set the hormone levels.
Perfect.
Because the hormones that are stimulated through sleep, melatonin, cortisol, they get stimulated. Well, not cortisol, that's down in the
Serotonin.
Serotonin, thank you. They're in the pineal gland. So it's all light information. So if you can get good light information in the morning, I would regulate stimulants to only be in the morning. So coffee, caffeine only in the morning, and then come the evening time, I'd start to have a down regulation protocol. So turning the TV off at a certain time, dimming the lights, making sure you finish eating a couple of hours before you're ready to go to bed, and basically preparing your body for sleep, because we have such an artificial environment now. When we were in the caves, you would have been able to naturally just feel that tiredness because there would have been no light other than the fire. So you would have gone to bed once the sun went down. And now it's a lot different. You can stay up all night with the artificial light. So I'd just try and mimic the wake cycle of the sun.
And that's a perfect approach to be able to do that. Another little, and then there are these little added potential added extras that you could use, like it's known also to be able to view the sunset. It is also a wonderful way to be able to get in sync with the circadian and the cycle of the earth around the sun as well, which will bring that melatonin into the forefront as well.
Great. So
Yeah.
you had a question from a client that we thought was quite interesting recently. Can you remember what that was? I think it was
Yeah.
around protein and workouts. I thought
Uh,
what we
oh
could
yeah.
do is probably because I think that's touching the main points for sleep,
Yeah.
and we could probably talk all day about it.
And we may very well do that in future episodes, but
Yeah,
that was a good little
sleep
overview, I think.
2.0.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I agree.
Um, yeah, so a client of mine just asked me a question about protein intake, having protein powder before or after you train. Is it important to because he's heard different views, and my personal philosophy is if you're having it, relatively close to your training, your training time, it's going to have very very little impact on the way that your body's going to process it before or after. What's your take on that?
Pretty much exactly the same. I think as long as you get your overall protein box ticked, 1.4 to 2 grams per kilo of body weight. If you're
Yep.
looking to build muscle,
Yep.
you can have a little bit less, up down to about 1.2, I think, for just regular health. If you're looking to build muscle, you tick that box. If you do that over, split that over 2 or 3 meals as a minimum throughout the day, I don't think for the general athlete it's going to make any difference or when you consume that. I know that if you are bodybuilding in particular and you really wanted to get into it, little and often throughout the day will aid protein synthesis. But for us regular folk who are just trying to get by, it's not going to make any difference to your recovery at all. Just tick that box
Yep, I
when
agree.
it's applicable to you, and like having it right before your workout, if that's going to negatively impact your workout, then yeah, I'd highly recommend against doing that.
Yep.
There's no absorbability difference after you finish your workout, so you're not in a state of complete readiness to absorb protein, like I think the bro science told us for 20 years.
Yeah.
The body will just absorb it and utilize it over that 24-hour period as it needs to when you consume it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just as another point, just your regular kind of weekend warrior athletes, your regular person, I would say most are undernourished when it comes to protein intake. So to being able just
Undernourished when it comes to everything.
overfed, undernourished, absolutely.
Correct. Yeah.
And being able to get that extra hit of protein. I personally am a big believer in being able to get that convenient hit of protein powder into your system. I
Yeah.
am a big believer of whole foods as a primary source of nutrition, but I'm also a realist when it comes to being able to get adequate amounts of macronutrients into your system, and protein is something I feel is definitely underutilized for adequate musculoskeletal nourishment.
Yeah, I would completely concur with that. The only little caveat that I would add to that is that you need to make sure the protein powder that you're consuming is absorbed well by you. So for a long time, it was just accepted that you had these protein farts, and they were pretty smelly. And I remember that being like just a little like ha 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 thing with the bro community.
Yeah.
But yeah, for mine, that was just a sign that my gut wasn't absorbing that very well. I take protein powder every day today, and I definitely do not pass smelly gas in that way. So yeah, that would be my little adjunct.
I think you're
So
right. And one other caveat, or not even something to add to that, I would say is just the technology associated with protein powder development over the last 20 years has definitely become more refined. So I feel like there are less smelly protein farts out there than there were in the early noughties.
and the world thanks us for it.
Yes, we all do.
So the question that I had from a client recently, it was more a general, like what are your supplementation recommendations? Like, what are your go-to supplements? And I thought that that was probably a good one to tack on to sleep, because there's plenty of sleep supplements out there as well. And because I would recommend that sleep be your number one supplement because of all the benefits that it has.
Amen, bro.
Yeah, so don't talk to me about supplements if you haven't got your sleep on track yet, because
Amen.
sleep will do all those things for you. But firstly, what I told them was that first thing I would do, and both you and me work with a company that will enable us to do this for clients now, which is sensational, given that 20 years ago this wasn't even on the landscape, but is that you get your blood work done and analyzed, and therefore you can have a specific supplement regime that's going to lift up the levels of your blood work that are in a deficit. That is the number one thing that I think I would do before embarking on any supplement regime.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, but there are a couple of like broad work for me, might work for you type of supplements that I would recommend. I've always loved magnesium, and I'll caveat that with saying that I always cycle all supplements that I take. So I don't take them 12 months of the year, generally because I forget to order them, and then there's a period when I don't take them, but it is sort of like a deliberate, not deliberate method. And then creatine. So protein powder we spoke about, creatine, magnesium. Those are the three that I sort of can't live without. Protein for the protein uptake, the maintenance of musculoskeletal tissue, magnesium to aid my body and nervous system to relax, particularly at night when I want to go to sleep. Creatine to drive water into the cells to help my mitochondria function better, to help my cognitive function, and to help energy levels during my workout.
And creatine is the highest tested supplement ever. So there's no other supplement that has been as rigorously tested as creatine, and that was for many years known as just like a bro supplement where you just get swole off it. But what you just mentioned about it being a cognitive aid and supplement, first and foremost, is it's something that, you know, it could be of benefit to most people in the general population.
Yeah. Oh, and caffeine.
Yep.
I would be remiss not to say that I utilize caffeine like a supplement. I don't drink coffee because it overstimulates me, but I use caffeine before a workout 3, maybe 4 times a week.
Oh, cool. You do like a pre-workout with caffeine?
Yeah, 100 micrograms of caffeine before a workout. I find that intermittent use of that far exceeds the performance of doing it every day. So 3 or 4 times a week, so that my body never gets used to it.
That's great.
Do you have supplements other than the ones we spoke about that you would sort of lean towards?
Yeah, I do actually. My go-tos, if I start with sleep, actually. Well, firstly, I have a probiotic that I like to take.
Okay.
In the morning for my gut.
Is it a specific type of probiotic?
I do have one that I feel works best for me. I can't quantify that in any way, but I get a sense that it works best for me.
So I got my stool tested so that you can get the right actual strain of probiotic for you.
Yeah,
and
right.
Similar to the blood work, I would recommend doing that.
I got my stool tested as well, and my naturopath put me onto this probiotic. So that's the one. So I rescind what I just said. I have had it quantified, and I did come up with a remedy.
We can just edit that last bit out.
Yeah. And another thing that I do for my sleep supplementation is I take glycine, which aids me in getting into a greater deep sleep.
Okay.
Awesome. And I also have magnesium with that glycine throughout the day. I also like fish oil. I really like fish oil. I just think this was well before the science came to my attention about fish oil. I used to call it my happy pills because I would take fish oil and I'd just be in it like regularly, and I just get like my mood would feel really, really great. Obviously not like day to day, but like I would have it over a long period of time. And now science has come out over the correlation between fish oil and mood stabilization as well.
Yeah, I think it's balancing your omega-3s and omega-6s super important and very tricky to do through your diet these days because
Yes.
unfortunately the quality of produce that we get is not what we got 100 years ago or even 50 years ago. And the fish are farmed, the meat within the fish doesn't contain a balanced level of omega-6s and omega-3s, it's much higher in omega-6s. Similar, this is where the contention comes with seed oils because they come to us in a degraded state, and so they have higher levels of omega-6s often because they haven't been taken care of. Even eggs, caged or farmed eggs, again, great sources of DHEA and EPA, but don't have the regulation, of the omegas, and so leave you feeling fatigued and lacking in antioxidants. And so supplementing with fish oils, eating walnuts, almonds, stuff like that, I think can really help regulate your blood lipid levels and then have you feeling really, really good. So, yeah, can concur with all of that, particularly if you are struggling with cholesterol.
Spot on. My morning smoothies generally I'll add chia seeds and linseeds into them as well. So it's
Nice.
all really, really good things.
That
Well,
can
that was a good little wrap up of supplementation,
Yeah,
and I think we're going to continue along with that segment on our future podcast. We'll just probably take a single question from one of our clients, or what we'd love also is for you guys to actually volunteer questions to us so we can answer you, the public, and really get a sense of what it is that you guys want to hear.
correct. What he said.
What I said. I mean, what he said. Cool. Okay, that's great. Let's keep this short, succinct. But yeah, loved it, Dunk. And it also gives us an opportunity to be able to continue our bromance from afar because, as you may or may not know, Duncan has moved all the way to northern New South Wales and left me home alone in Victoria.
Poor guy.
All right, guys, take it easy.